What's poppin', y'all? It's your boy Pee Wee the Plug, 1/4 through the wire, #1 Knicks fan in the world, aka Mr. Know-It-All, and welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. Today's episode, we're going to be doing some things that are a little different, things that I've never done on this channel or in this series, and it's specifically going to be around the Milwaukee Bucks, who are right now down 0-2 to the Brooklyn Nets in the Eastern Conference Semifinals. I got some screenshots and some slides to go over the Milwaukee Bucks and specifically their offense. They are a good team, but I feel like they've really been hurting themselves offensively more than anything. Going into the series against the Nets, everybody knows it's going to be impossible of a task to stop or slow down Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden when Harden is healthy. So I think that's just too tough or too unrealistic to ask yourselves to stop them. But I do think that the Bucks are even putting themselves at more of a disadvantage and doing themselves a disservice with what they're doing on the offensive end. This is a good team that they've built over the last few years, and specifically the last year with adding PJ Tucker, extending Drew Holiday, bringing in Bobby Portis, Brent Forbes. They've done a really good job. But this team does start and end with Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's the back-to-back MVP for a reason. And anybody who watches basketball and the Bucks know that he is the guy that makes them go. And if he's not going, this team doesn't really have much hope to win a game, let alone the series. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be diving in specifically on the Bucks offense, and specifically Giannis's touches in the Bucks offense. We're going to start off with game 2. At the end, we're going to show a little bit of game 1, just so you guys can really understand and see the differences from how Brooklyn is playing. Now, before we dive into the screenshots and the slides, I do want to give some credit to the Brooklyn Nets. Like, the Brooklyn Nets have put together a game plan. It seems to be working. Their team is buying in. At certain times, they're on one accord. And I think that has to get talked about. I have to shine some light on them and give them some credit because they have been dragged all year, rightfully so, with their defensive concerns and woes. So I do want to tip my hat off to that coaching staff, Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni, Ime Udoka. So they put together something good going. But a lot of this, in my opinion, is also the Bucks hurting themselves and just doing themselves a disservice. So without further ado, let's dive into the slides. So this first slide that we have right in front of us, it is one of the earlier plays of game 2. You see the Bucks getting right into their offense. This right here is Drew Holiday initiating offense. So right now, I want us to dive into the Brooklyn Nets. Okay, so Drew Holiday, like I said, is getting into the offense. He's being guarded man-to-man by Kyrie Irving. You have next to them Bruce Brown, who is in a great position in the gap between ball and man, which is normal basketball one-on-one stuff. Great positioning. And next to them, we have Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin is playing the prototypical way to play Giannis. A lot of guys and a lot of defenses play Giannis like this year in and year out. This is not nothing new. We know Giannis is hurting you inside the paint. As years go on, of course, he's getting more confident and more better with occasionally knocking down mid-range shots or three-point shots, and he's taking them. But still, he's most dangerous in the paint and coming downhill with a head full of steam. So Blake Griffin is in great position to guard him, especially off ball. There's no reason to be hugging or hovering around Giannis Antetokounmpo when he doesn't have the ball. And even when he does have the ball, you still are a step or two back, giving him space to give yourself an advantage for him coming downhill at you. The next guy is Joe Harris, who is playing very respectable to Brent Forbes. Brent Forbes has a name in his league, and the name is just shooter. He's a known shooter, a guy that can get hot, and I know everybody is on standby because of the game that he had, or a couple of games that he had in the Miami series. So Joe Harris is guarding him the way you should. And then right now you see Kevin Durant, who is guarding Brook Lopez, is all the way on the opposite block, so far away from Brook Lopez. And the reason that is being, and the reason I love this defensive setup that they have right here early on is basically Giannis's inability to shoot, or incapability to shoot, or lack thereof. It allows you to play a defensive scheme like this because right now it looks lopsided. but they're just loading up on Drew Holiday. You see Bruce Brown is not letting him have the left-hand drive. And now Kevin Durant is over there to stop or eliminate a right side drive. So he can't go baseline. He can't really go middle. He can't go anywhere. And the reason that can happen is because Giannis can't shoot, so they're packing the paint. And now when you look at Joe Harris, I love his position because he's right now guarding two guys at the same time. Drew Holiday cannot make that skip pass. And if he does, Joe Harris is right there a step over to be right with him. So there's no look. And if Joe Harris, for whatever reason, committed to Brook Lopez, Blake Griffin is a step away from being right there to slide over to Forbes to pick him up, and Kevin Durant is right there in the middle of the lane with plenty of time to get to Giannis because Giannis isn't an outside threat. KD doesn't have to rush to the three-point line. All he has to do is slide over and meet Giannis to, one, contest him at the rim if Giannis gets ahead of steam and go in attack mode, or if Giannis wants to cut, swinging the ball, whatever. KD just has to slide over, meet him in the paint to take a charge or to contest him at the rim. And like I said, Bruce Brown is in great position and Kyrie is on the ball. So that's a great setup right there. This is early in the first quarter. It's only been 3 minutes. It's only 8-5, and they're already just playing and with a great setup, in my opinion. So now the next slide to show the rest of the development of the play. We see eventually Giannis comes into the middle of the court, free throw line, and catches the ball in the middle of the floor. Because Drew Holiday could go nowhere, he just gave it to Giannis, who cut to the middle of the floor. Now, when Giannis catches it, look at the defense. KD slides over to the other block, still not really guarding Brook Lopez too closely, and is eliminating a drive avenue for Giannis if he decided to go left to the basket on Blake Griffin. KD is there. Joe Harris is still respecting Brent Forbes. Kyrie Irving has now opened up in his ball-man gap. And then Bruce Brown is in great position behind Giannis on his hip, digging from the back, which is why Giannis has the ball in his left hand, because there is no way Giannis can get that ball to Middleton, and there's no way that Giannis can even see Middleton, which is why I have Middleton circled with a question mark, because what is Middleton doing right here? He might as well be on the bench or all the way on the defensive side of the opposite end of the court, because right here he's useless. And another thing I want to point out is a lot of these screenshots and slides that I have and that I'm showing you guys, it's what the play is, right? So this entire possession, Chris Middleton is right there. He does not move anywhere else. It's not like I'm showing you the early part of a play or later in a second Chris Middleton is going to dive or cut. Nothing like that. What I'm showing you is what it is and how they're moving. And that's one of the things I don't like about what the Bucks is doing. And we're going to start speeding this up. I'm showing a lot of time early on just to show how they came out the gate. But yeah, they're walling up, suffocating them. Not really. This is a soft wall. You know what I mean? KD and Kyrie are kind of making sure he doesn't have any easy avenues, but they're kind of suffocating him with the three jerseys around him. And as we get going throughout and start to speed it up, we'll start to see guys who are in Joe Harris's position even add a fourth body, because the point of this is the Nets aren't going to respect the Bucks shooting. And as we move to the next slide, we see that, again, nobody moves. The only person in this entire possession that moved was Giannis. Brent Forbes has been right there in that same spot the entire possession from the first slide. Brook Lopez never moved once. Chris Middleton never moved once. Drew Holiday, who the offense started with, at that right where he's at now, stayed in that same spot, and ultimately it resolves, and Giannis taking a left elbow mid-range contested jumper over Blake Griffin that I must say he did make. But the point of it is the fact that the Brooklyn Nets will live with that, because Giannis isn't beating you with mid-range contested jump shots. He's just not. As good as Giannis is, as much as he's grown, he's not beating you like that. And that's a great first defensive possession of the game for the Nets. Now we go to the next slide. We have another situation where Giannis has the basketball. All of this is going to be Giannis. Now it's different because Nick Claxton in. I'm circling the paint with the red because that's obviously where Giannis wants to go. Anytime Giannis has the basketball and it's this high, he wants to get ahead of steam. He wants to attack you downhill and find a way to get to that basket or that paint, because that is what he is dominant at. So As the play progresses, we go to the next slide. Bryn Forbes comes up and he receives a handoff from Giannis. This handoff is going to turn into a pick and roll action between the two. But again, from the first slide to the second slide that we're now on, not much has changed. Nobody has moved besides Giannis and Bryn Forbes. And the arrow right there for Claxton shows you, because Claxton doesn't have to play up on Giannis, this handoff and this pick is kind of useless. Like Landry Shamet has all of the space in the world to get through the pick because Giannis is no threat, and he can leave. Claxton can leave the gap open for Landry to shoot through. So right there, Landry recovers. As we go to the next slide, the pick and roll happens. Shamet commits and recovers a little too fast off of a move from Bryn Forbes, and he kind of jumps at a pump fake. Bryn Forbes ends up getting a clean look. But even here, nobody is a threat besides the two guys that move. Middleton still never moved, and he's already on his way back to the defensive end. Drew Holiday is still in the same spot he was. Bobby Portis, who was under the basket for the entire possession, was in no man's land in any way to affect his play. And even where Giannis is at, like, Claxton is a step away from going and helping KD on the boards. And this is a spot where the Bucks are supposed to have an advantage, was the offensive glass. But look at where they are. There's three black jerseys already in the paint to Bobby Portis' one white jersey. And Bryn Forbes made the shot, but again, he's another shot that the Brooklyn Nets will live with. Going further to another possession, here is the wall. We're starting to see wall action now from the Brooklyn Nets. You have Bruce Brown, Blake Griffin in the middle, and then you have Mike James at the end, and that's a wall right there. That's a wall where they're not giving Giannis any driving avenue at all. On the backside is Brook Lopez. In the two corners, you have Connaughton, and you have Bryn Forbes, and then you have Drew Holiday right there. This is when the Nets start to say, you don't fear us. You have to show me you can shoot. Bruce Brown putting trust in himself to recover to Drew Holiday. He's committing a little further than I think he would have maybe in game one, right? Same with Mike James. I think Mike James is in a proper place because Pat Connaughton is 50-50 on his shots. He's not necessarily a threat, but he's not a guy you're going to take lightly either. And the same thing with Shamet. Shamet is in great position on a guy like Bryn Forbes. And then underneath the basket, you have Joe Harris just fighting for his life with Brook Lopez down there. Ultimately, what this play is going to result to, as we go to the next slide, is basically Drew Holiday catching the ball on a cut, and he's making a tough layup. And even in this sequence, guys are just out of position. This is a fabulous layup by Drew Holiday. I can't say enough. He switched hands on this, if I'm not mistaken. But he's surrounded by Brooklyn Net guys. If you can't see Landry Shamet anymore because he's digging and he's in help position on Drew Holiday. Blake Griffin is there contesting him at the rim. You have Bruce Brown right there who digged in on his drive, I believe. Or no, excuse me, that's not Landry Shamet. You can't see. That's Matt Harris. Landry Shamet is guarding Bryn Forbes. Joe Harris is helping off of Brook Lopez with Blake Griffin in the paint on Drew Holiday. And he made, like I said, he switched hands and made a difficult shot. But you see why already at the bottom of your screen the score is a 20-point game, because these are the type of baskets that the Milwaukee Bucks were getting. These are tough baskets, man. These are very tough baskets. And even in this, Giannis isn't in a position to where he's going to be effective. That whole possession, Giannis wasn't anywhere where he was putting pressure on you. This is not where you want Giannis at if you're the Bucks. Look at him in his possession. Because right there, who is guarding Giannis? Nobody. They're all going to be in the paint to contest and help on Drew Holiday. Pat Connaughton is pretty much like in no man's land, kind of how Bobby Portis was underneath the basket. It's just a mess. But you tip your hat off if you're the Brooklyn Nets and you say, hey, good layup, but beat me with it. Next slide. Again, we have Giannis in a situation where he's in the middle of the court, free throw line again, and you have a bunch of black jerseys swarming him. Kyrie Irving in incredible position. Here's the disrespect again. Mike James completely leaves Pat Connaughton. Like, completely leaves him. Just not even acknowledging him. Kevin Durant does not care that PJ Tucker is behind him on his way to the corner. They just don't care. We don't respect you. Even Kyrie Irving, he's literally walking away from Chris Middleton. I don't respect you. I don't care about your name or what you shot in the regular season. Prove to me that you can make a shot right now in this game, in this series. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And as we go to the next slide, you see the same thing. PJ Tucker now goes all the way to the corner. He's now comfortably wide open in the corner, and Kevin Durant has not moved or acknowledged that he cares that he's there. Even Mike James, he still hasn't really committed to Pat Connaughton. It's just that Giannis made a ball pass and made Mike James turn his head, and he got a head of steam because it opened up for half a second. Great play by Giannis. Great play by Giannis. And then he goes up and he finishes over Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant, a lot of times during this game, he made business decisions. There's no reason to contest Giannis at the rim consistently to pick up fouls or to get on posters when we're up a dub. You know what I mean? So I understand Kevin Durant not trying to contest him on every single chance he gets, because it's just not smart. We're up a dub. He can have that layup that he just worked so hard to get, and it's only going to put them down 18. It's no reason to pick up silly fouls trying to contest Giannis at the rim every single time he gets an opportunity. But just another good defensive stance from the Brooklyn Nets. Another play here. Fantastic play. This is a fast break opportunity for the Bucks. Bruce Brown and Kyrie Irving swarm and attack Giannis. They attack him so much and so hard and so physical that he picks up his dribble and makes an incredible spinning play through both of them. And even when he makes this spinning play, again, Kevin Durant, I'm going to leave you, PJ Tucker. I don't respect you. I'm going to disrespect you and pretend you don't exist. He's leaving the corner on PJ Tucker again, and he's 2 feet in the paint, ready to help these guys. Ultimately, again, Giannis splits this double team from Kyrie and Brown, keeps the ball high, and as he spins, Giannis has all the biggest steps in the world. He spins through and gets a layup at the rim that, again, Kevin Durant lightly contests. He didn't go hard, wasn't trying to foul him or block it, and Giannis made it. But again, they're up 21 points. You'll live with that. You'll live with that, because look how hard Giannis had to work for that. Even with this screenshot, you're seeing how much energy and effort he put in to just get 2 points in a 21-point deficit. It's amazing. It's amazing. Next slide. Again, look at this setup. This is a wall behind Blake Griffin. Very nice setup. Mike James is coming over to help to take off a driving lane from Giannis. He's kind of got his back turned to Jrue Holiday, but I'm sure he's going to face up and be between ball and man. Perfect gap situation when you're one pass over. Bruce Brown disrespectfully is leaving Chris Middleton. I don't care that you're Chris Middleton and you made an all-star game or two. I'm not going to acknowledge you. He's behind Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown got his back towards him, helping Kyrie with Brook Lopez, who's behind the defense. Kevin Durant is already ready to commit to get 2 feet in the paint when Giannis is going to attempt to make his drive, and they're just packing the paint right here. They're just packing the paint. We're not respecting the corner shooters. Mike James, I'm one over. I'm in between the ball and the man. Perfect gap position on Jrue Holiday, and ultimately, as we see with the next slide, Giannis is getting ready to lob it to Brook Lopez. But again, I circle both corners to show that they're just abandoning him. Like, again, Bruce Brown still isn't committing or looking at Chris Middleton. Same thing with Kevin Durant with PJ Tucker on the opposite corner. He's not caring. They both have their foot on the block, ready to pack the paint even more if Giannis decides or can get past Blake Griffin and Mike James. But Giannis makes a good read and a good play, a play that they had in game 1 as well, where Brook Lopez, when they wall up a little bit, he has a smaller defender on him and he pushes him out as he's pushing Kyrie out. Giannis lobs it, and as we see in the next slide, Brook Lopez does a good job finishing. But again, they're up 21. You did all, that play just led to you getting 2 points, and now you're down 19. And the Bucks aren't going to beat the Nets with backline lobs to Brook Lopez over Kyrie. It's not how they're going to win games. You know what I mean? So again, this is another possession where the Nets are just like, hey, we'll live with that. Another offensive possession, this time in the second half, early second half, fresh out of halftime. Another soft wall. You see Kyrie, Blake, and Kevin Durant all line up perfectly for a soft wall. In my opinion, Kyrie Irving is showing a little bit too much respect to Drew Holiday in the second half of this game. They're down 27 points, and they're shooting the ball abysmally. They shot the ball like 20% from three this specific game, or maybe it was 29%. On the series, they're shooting about 24% from three. So Kyrie Irving is showing a little bit too much love, in my opinion. He has his left foot on the three-point line. I would much rather see his right foot be closer to the free throw line, or the circle of the free throw line, more so than his left foot being above or halfway through the three-point line. But the biggest issue here isn't even the defense with the Nets or how to line it up with this soft wall, because Giannis has the avenue right there through Kyrie. Kyrie isn't fully committed there. He may come over to dig once he sees Giannis going there. But the issue is, what is PJ Tucker and Chris Middleton doing? Why are they clobbering the paint? Giannis is on his way to the paint, and two of his teammates are there, and they're bringing their two defenders. So already before Giannis gets to the paint, there's 5 bodies in the paint already. With Kevin Durant is just literally a toe away from being the 6th body in the paint. So why are y'all making it that much more harder for Giannis to get to the basket, which is where he's going to dominate and be his best? So again, they're just different things that the Bucks are doing offensively that just doesn't make sense, and it's not. I'm not used to seeing this. Like, spacing, we all know, is so critical for Giannis and his offensive success. So like, what's going on now? Like, PJ Tucker is under the rim, out of bounds. There's nothing he can do there. It's nothing he can do there. Chris Middleton, what are you doing? And even when we go to the next slide, Chris Middleton kind of gets out of the play. But PJ Tucker makes no effort to get to the corner. He's just living under the basket. And what Giannis does is he drives through Blake Griffin. Kevin Durant could have been a little bit more over to force that pass. But I guess he thought Blake Griffin was going to get this charge call. Could have went either way. But it's going to be a foul, and it's going to be an and one. But again, the Brooklyn Nets are living with it because you're down 27. And look, you know what I mean? That could go either way. You know, that could go either way. I don't know if they're down 27. I don't know if they're getting an and one. It could be a charge. And and again, Drew Holiday is in the same position he was the entire play. Same with Brook Lopez. Very little movement, a lot of standing around, and just a lot of head scratching on why guys are in the positions that they're in. But it does ultimately lead to a basket, an and one basket by Giannis. Next possession, again, Drew Holiday initiates the offense, gets the ball to Giannis for him to go at Blake Griffin one-on-one, try to get some steam and go downhill and get to the basket. But he then cuts through the paint, and he brings Kyrie Irving with him. So now when you look at Giannis, he's face-to-face with Blake. Kyrie is in the middle of Blake and Kevin Durant, and then you have Kevin Durant there, and he's helping off extremely off Brook Lopez, because what is Brook Lopez doing? Why is he leaning over like that? He's no threat like that. Chris Middleton is all the way at the logo. So Bruce Brown is on his way to dig from Giannis if Giannis does attempt to drive that way. Because Chris Middleton, how are you going to affect the play at all from half court? And then we go to the next slide. And again, very little movement. Giannis makes a play where he flicks it over his shoulder, a little push floater type shot that does go in and ultimately lead to a basket. Shout out to him for making a quick little floating play over Blake Griffin. But again, you look at the rest of the offense, Brook Lopez, what are you doing? He's still bent over, not moving, not being aggressive or making himself effective at all. Same with Chris Middleton. Drew Holiday is under the basket. I don't know if Giannis is making that play. Not saying he can't, but I'm just not sure he's even seeing him. And then PJ Tucker, who I believe is on the floor, he's not even in the camera frame. And look how many bodies are around Giannis Antetokounmpo. And they come in, it's almost a 30-point game. So, I mean, they're kind of playing a little soft right now. And still, this is the shot that you're getting with them almost up 30 points. Next possession, we have same thing. You know, like, this is probably what our 3rd, maybe 4th play in a row where we have an offensive player on the Bucks getting in the way of Giannis and being in a place that they have no business being in. This is Brook Lopez with Joe Harris on him, and he's right next to Giannis. Giannis gets the ball from Drew Holiday, and why Brook Lopez is right on top of Giannis, adding another body to help defend, I don't know. In the corner, you see Kevin Durant looking over his shoulder, basically letting PJ Tucker know, hey, You don't exist to me, and I'm not going to guard you. I'm on my way to just abandon you. I'm going to completely leave you, and it's nothing that we're going to be concerned about. And I'm on my way to help Blake Griffin on the backside with Giannis. Again, Bruce Brown and Kyrie playing a little bit more respectfully than they probably have to or need to. Don't know why they're playing that high. You know, it doesn't look like they've needed to all game. But, you know, again, probably because they're up almost 30 points. So, you know, a little relaxed on this possession. But again, just clobbering and getting Giannis's way in and not making it any more easier for him. They're already, as a team, not knocking down shots. And then on top of it, you're just clogging up any space or any room for him to work with. And as we see with the next slide, same thing. Like, well, no, I take that back. With this slide, there is some guys that are a little out of position, but this one time, the Bucks kind of catch the Nets sleeping. So I won't say the same thing. This is actually a play where the Nets could have been better on defense. But again, they're up 25 with 3 minutes left in the third. This game is pretty much wrapped up. So I'm not going to put too much of it on them not doing what they need to do. But kind of, like I said, being more relaxed. But I do think in a film session, preparing for the next game, this is probably a play Udoa, because he is a defensive specialist coach that they have as an assistant. He's probably going to show them this, like a better way to defend this. This is basically Brent Forbes trying to drive, but there's Kyrie shutting down the driving lane the same way they do Giannis, and basically running these guys off the line. You know, now he's getting the ball to Giannis. So Giannis, as I have circled, is everybody in the gym should know that's exactly where Giannis is trying to get. Any opening, any avenue to get 2 feet in that paint or to be in that paint is what he's going to do. So you got Kyrie shutting down the lane. I have Landry Shamet with the arrow there because I personally think they can switch this. Kyrie is committing to Brent Forbes. Shamet is already running to that area. He should just switch. It should just be a simple communication and a switch. And Landry Shamet is already there, one, as an extra body for Giannis to have to get to, or potentially taking a charge. One or the other, and then you already have Kevin Durant there ready to help you at the rim. And I also think Nicholas Claxton is in the wrong position. And it's probably because he's usually out there to guard Kevin Durant. So now that he's not guarding Kevin Durant, he looks a little bit confused on where he should be and how he should be playing. Every time Kevin Durant throughout this game has guarded P.J. Tucker, he's completely left him. So why Nicholas Claxton is kind of glued to him, I have no clue. If Kevin Durant is where Nick Claxton is, Kevin Durant's foot would probably be on that block right there. That's kind of circled, a part of that circle, which is where Claxton should be to be that third body that Giannis would have to see. So as we move to the slide, though, to the next one, instead of Kyrie switching out to Forbes, he is now trying to recover on Giannis. Instead of Shamet going to his arrow and meeting Giannis at the paint, he's going to go back to Forbes. Kevin Durant is already there to come up. Claxton still is kind of a bit too glued to P.J. Tucker, in my opinion. And as we see with the next slide, Giannis gets past Irvin, has him on his back. Up 25, Kevin Durant again is going to make that business decision to say, hey, he can have the layup. And Claxton is still just in a place where he shouldn't be. I think he should be right there kind of next to Kevin Durant, being an extra body to contest and maybe even getting that block at the rim on Giannis because it's definitely going to be harder to score over Claxton and Kevin Durant versus just Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant pretty much moved and let Giannis have this because, again, it's just not worth picking up a foul or getting put on a poster when you're up 25. You know what I mean? The game is pretty much over. We go to the next slide. Now, here, we're done with game 2. And now we're just going to go through some of game 1 so you can see the difference in the Nets defense, right? Giannis had 30-something points in game 1, only had 18 in game 2. And this is the reason why. Already from the first possession, look at that paint. Look at the opening. Look how much, paint is open for Giannis to get. And now look at the Nets and how they're playing defense in the first game compared to the second game. This is a new series, and right here in this game 1, this picture, this is the first game of the series. They're respecting them. Kevin Durant is all over Brook Lopez. Joe Harris is playing respectable defense on P.J. Tucker. And Kyrie Irving is following Drew Holiday. They have a pick and roll with Giannis and Middleton. Blake Griffin is trying to show and let his teammate get through the screen. And then we go to the next slide. They pocket pass to Giannis Antetokounmpo before Bruce Bowen could get back to Middleton. And Giannis is able to get that easy dunk because nobody is there in that paint, which we had circled. Next possession. Again, look at the paint. I don't have it circled, but you can see it right there. It's wide open. And on this play, Pat Connaughton is setting a back screen on Blake Griffin for Giannis to cut through and get a nice feed in the paint to get a nice little dunk or a layup. And look at the Nets. Landry Shamet, he's glued to Forbes over there. Kyrie Irving, he's all over Drew Holiday, as he should. When Drew Holiday has the ball, he's going to be guarded on ball like this. Of course, he's not going to leave anybody with the ball in their hands. Kevin Durant, all over Brook Lopez. Not how it was in the first slide that I showed in this video when he was guarding Brook Lopez and was all the way away from him or backed off. No, he's all in his face, respect him as a shooter. Mike James in this situation, to me, should get a little bit more into Giannis right there. Should probably bar him up with his forearm just to give him some type of bump until Blake Griffin can recover. But as we go to the next slide, he doesn't do that. And Giannis is able to get behind him, and Drew Holiday feeds him for the slam before Blake Griffin can recover. But what we're seeing already in this game one, the difference from game two, is that the Nets are showing them a lot of respect early on. They're hugging guys. They're not in crazy amount of help. They're worried about getting back to guys on back screens and different things like that. They're giving them a certain sign of respect that opens up the game for Giannis to have certain type of looks at the rim. Even the next slide right here, another big chunk of the paint open. KD again right next to Brook Lopez. Joe Harris is playing Connaughton with a lot of respect. Even Mike James, for that to be Teague over there in the opposite corner, he's giving him some respect. And Bruce Bowen is all over Drew Holiday, where Drew Holiday isn't really in a position to be effective in this possession. And we go to the next slide, and Giannis rejects the screen. So what happens in this play is Drew Holiday, smartly, because he was in a place in no man's land, he comes up to the right elbow to try to give Giannis a screen, in which would put Bruce Brown on Giannis if they switch that. Giannis rejects the screen, drives left, cuts through the defense, and there's just no help there. He's going right up on Kevin Durant, which we've seen already so many times. Kevin Durant isn't trying necessarily to meet Giannis at the rim every single time, and I think that's smart. He just shouldn't get himself even the potential chance of being in foul trouble to block Giannis. That wouldn't be smart, and it just leads to Giannis layup. Next slide. Again, they get the ball to Giannis, and it's one-on-one. Kyrie Irving is all over Middleton. Nicholas Claxton isn't even looking at Giannis for the basketball. His focus is all on Bobby Portis, of all people. He's trying to wonder and keep up where exactly Bobby Portis is going to go. Mike James is a little bit off of Jeff Teague. And then you have Joe Harris keeping up with Brook. And then Giannis, as we see in the next slide, just goes baseline on Blake. And that's just like easy money for Giannis. That's his game. You get on one-on-one, and he's going to go around whoever is right there in front of him. And if there's no help at the rim, it's an easy finish for him. You know, Giannis is a strong freak of nature who is a two-time MVP for a reason. You know, you're gonna need help to keep that guy out of the paint, and he gets an easy one right there because the Nets are respecting their players. Next slide right here. Giannis is trying to go at Blake Griffin, and you see Bruce Brown is with Brook Lopez right there. Joe Harris is right there with Chris Middleton. He's not even trying to dig or cut off an avenue like we saw in game two. Same thing with Kyrie Irving. Drew Holiday is damn near out of the picture, and Kyrie Irving is still right there. And then you see Kevin Durant is in help position, going to let PJ Tucker run behind him. But as we go in the next slide, it ended up being a one-on-one play when Giannis going right through Blake at the rim. And even though Kevin Durant is in position and could potentially probably get that block right there, he kind of just lets him lay it up. He's in position, but he doesn't help. And same thing with Kyrie and Joe Harris. They're just not involved in the play at all. And Bruce Brown, same thing. Just kind of standing there watching. And boom, easy layup for Giannis. And it's only a 5-point game in the third quarter in this first game. Even here, this is a play that kind of was a bit of a head scratcher to me from Landry Shamet. He committed all the way that far to dig on Giannis. He completely left Connaughton. And as we go to the next slide, Giannis turns around and makes this tough shot. But Shamet left. I don't know why Shamet left. If you had already commit that much to digging on him, you might as well fully commit and make him pick up that ball or just kick it out to Connaughton. And then you live with Connaughton taking that shot or trying to make a play off the bounce. But right there, you're doing nothing. So you might as well have made that shot right there a little bit tougher. That is already a tough shot as it is, but you could have made it tougher if you're Shamet by just staying in place. Giannis does make this tough fall-away shot, which eventually makes it a 6-point game. Here you have a little bit of a soft wall. Bruce Brown, you're starting to see guys are leaving guys because they've got that 14-point lead. There's no shot making yet from the Bucks in here. So now you start to see that the Nets may have had a timeout or a conversation where the coaching staff is letting them know, hey, relax. Y'all showing them a little bit too much respect. Ease up. And you see Kyrie Irving is in the line in that area to cut off a driving alley for Giannis the same way they played him in game 2. They're doing it at the end of game 1. And he's kind of leaving Chris Middleton over there. Mike James is ready to leave. Jeff Teague, it looks like. Bruce Brown sees that Connaughton is just too far out, so he's already approaching to help dig if Giannis drives with his left hand on Blake. And on the backside, unfortunately, you're left with Joe Harris on Brook Lopez, and they do the same play we saw in game 2 where they kind of lob it, and there you have it in the next slide. Brook Lopez finishes the alley-oop from Giannis. But again, that's not going to beat you. Even right here, 16-point lead, 5 minutes left. Game is pretty much kind of starting to be over. Kyrie is going to that X to go help Mike James. They have a mismatch where Giannis, for whatever reason, is being guarded by Mike James. And Kyrie is ready to leave Drew Holiday to commit and drive off that lane for Giannis to drive in with his right hand. And you see Kevin Durant already leaving in that left side corner, already leaving PJ Tucker to help on the drive. But for whatever reason, as we see on the next slide, Blake Griffin and Brook Lopez are kind of tied up. I don't know how this happened, why it happened, but they're tied up. And as we go to the last slide there, there's just no way for Blake Griffin to contest Giannis at the rim there. So he has another easy finish. But again, the game is pretty much over, and you'll live with that. And that's the last slide. But what I wanted to show there was the differences between game 1 and game 2. In game 1, it was, like I said, a new series. And the Brooklyn Nets was respecting their shooters and not leaving guys. And it opened up a lot for Giannis in that first game. As they struggled in game 1, the coaching staff or even the players just realized, why break my neck or commit too much to guys who aren't making us pay? So at the end of the first game, you start to see guys aren't glued to guys as much as they were in that first half. They're not so concerned with where guys are. And that same thing led to the momentum in game 2 where they came out and say, hey, from out the gates, we're just not going to guard certain guys. PJ Tucker is going to have to show me I need to guard him, is what Kevin Durant is saying. Brook Lopez is going to have to make some shots. And even if he does, is it going to beat us? Chris Middleton, it's only so much long we're going to fully commit to you and give Giannis all of these luxuries and these different driving lanes or one-on-one looks with Blake Griffin, because Blake Griffin's not going to be able to keep him out of the paint for a full game. And I think that is a big factor in the Bucks and the lack of success that they're having 2 games through. So they're going to have to make some shots, number 1. And then number 2, they got to get organized. I also went through a lot of screenshots and a lot of slides of guys just being in the wrong places and just in weird areas. There's no reason Giannis should ever have the ball and is trying to pick up a head full of steam to go downhill, and 2 of his teammates are in the paint just clogging it up for him. It just doesn't make that much sense. So I'm interested to see how they respond in game 3. Hopefully they can start knocking down some shots, because that's always going to be the key to opening up the floor for Giannis. We all know a guy like Giannis, you have to have driving avenues for him. The less shots you're making, the easier it becomes to guard Giannis. And I think that's just the biggest deal breaker. As always, though, I appreciate everybody who's made it this far in the video. If you agree with what I'm saying, or if you have any disagreements, if there's any 2 cents that you want to add, feel free to leave it in the comments. If you like this type of content on the NBA Weekly series, please let me know. I love all type of feedback. If you're new, subscribe. Always leave a like. That never goes unnoticed or unappreciated. And as always, I will see you guys soon. I'm Pee Wee the Plug. This is NBA Weekly, and I'm out.